Hi, friends. I am so excited to present this session for you. For one thing, performance-based humans are my favorite humans. So I am so excited to show you how you might leverage Canvas for some of your day-to-day. So if you want to follow along inside of Canvas, you are free to do so. Otherwise, you can sit back and I'm hoping that some ideas will inspire you to either start a little bit of instruction in Canvas or to continue and expand what you might be doing inside of your LMS and then transfer that to Canvas. That would be great. So, broadly speaking, we're going to take a look at how you could leverage Canvas to provide resources for students, provide some opportunities for students to collaborate and to engage in peer feedback. And that's not to say that they don't already do that. I'm positive they do that in person because of the nature of your course. And I think all of that should continue and expand as you need to. I am, however, positing that Canvas can host some of those collaboration and peer feedback opportunities. And there can be some advantages in letting Canvas take some of the burden off of you for that. And I also want to talk about how you could even create some performance-based assessments in Canvas. Again, continue to have performance-based assessments in person as a demonstration of how students have mastered your content. But again, Canvas could host a little bit of that or some of that. So this is going to focus mainly on use cases for Canvas tools to inspire you to see those tools perhaps in a different light, uh, and to show you how you could potentially use that for your use case in a performance-based class. So let's talk about the resource piece of this, first of all. I'm going to start inside of one of my courses here. It's a performance-based course that I have. And oddly enough, I'm going to start in an area of Canvas that we are not wanting students to enter. That's the files area. And if you're thinking, why is she talking about something students can't enter? I'm positing, second time I'm using that word today, that you can use files for yourself, right? As an extension of your files that you keep inside of your Microsoft Drive. Because I have no doubt that you haven't always had the benefit of things like textbooks. You've been gathering resources from across the universe for a long time and you have them organized. And I'm suggesting that you could use the Canvas file space to do the same, except these are files that you tend to use and might want to use in your Canvas course. So a quick look at the file space here. You can go ahead and upload your new files here. If you do that though, you can either drag and drop your files or you can click the spaceship and pick a file. Just know though, if you add a file in that way, it's going to appear kind of loose and hanging on at the bottom of your screen here. So if you would like to be super organized from the get-go, you could create a folder first, give that folder a title, and then you can pop that resource in the folder. So you can feel free to name your folders in whatever format makes sense to you. And that could be by unit, like unit one, unit two, unit three, perhaps with the title of that unit in it, or by chapter, by theme, by project, however you want to structure that. So let's say I've got a couple of these files. We'll go ahead and take a look at this image right here. If I want to place this file in a folder, I check that off here. And then in the options menu, always represented by three dots, you can move that folder, or rather that item, to the folder where it should go. And then at that point, you can just click on the file to find that resource. So you want to structure this in a way that you could quickly kind of get to your files easily. And it's certainly true that if you've got files on the heavier side of things, right? The generous files. It is a lot easier on Canvas if you upload your files first to here and then link to them inside of Canvas rather than putting these files directly in the rich content editor. So make use of those upload area, that folder area to keep your folders nice and organized. And as you can see here, you can absolutely have subfolders like famous works, examples. So make this space your own, right? Does it replace your Microsoft Drive though? Certainly not, but it's definitely a place where you can access your files easily for students. And since I have deliberately hidden the files area, if you're thinking, well, how do students locate the famous works that I need them to look at? The answer is that we place them inside of modules, which is where we're going to go to next. So let me pause here because it's a natural break, I think, for a question. If you have any questions about anything so far, feel free to let us know here. All right, then. So as I've mentioned, keep your file space organized in the ways that best suits your brain and your course. But keep that hidden because students don't necessarily understand your brain. Weird, I know, but it's true. So they might not know how to navigate the file space, which is why we're asking that you keep this hidden and to make those files that are needed for students available inside the modules area. So if your question is now, well, what's a module, at least in Canvas? Modules work similar in D2L, I understand, where you can create these folders that open and close, where you can keep associated resources like this module here, centered on the Georgia O'Keeffe Art Gallery. And I have 6 files that are pulled from the file space here. So if you're just starting out and thinking, how am I going to make Canvas work for me? I'd start here. Could we create a module that is simply a repository of resources that students might need for an assignment or for a project? And that way, as a student, I can open it. I can click on it. I can view the content. And I know everything inside the module here is related. Therefore, if I need to go access the Georgia O'Keeffe resources 2 months from now, I can. All right, and before I get too far here, let's answer Andrea's question here. You see, I've got several of these links that are closed, like hidden from students. So if I want to hide, say, I'll pretend I want to hide Studio. You would go to the settings link here, go to the navigation tab. This is where you determine what's visible. And then I would take, say, this link right here, and I'll drag it to the bottom. Tables at the bottom are not accessible to students. And then I will scroll all the way down to the bottom here and then save it. So if you want to check, right, I mean, check your own work, go to home here and then click on view as student. And then your student view will let you know what is truly available to students. In general, you want this to be as short a list as is humanly possible. All right, so let's say I want to go ahead and create a resource module. Click on the plus module button up here. Create the name of your resource, modern dance. Select on the add module button at the bottom here. And I know I've got a lot of modules here, but you're wondering no doubt, where is it? Where's the module she just made? It's always at the bottom. So at this point, since students do see the order of your modules, you might want to move this closer to the top. You can either drag and drop, or in the three dots options menu, I like this actually too. You can move module up to the very top, right? And then from here, it's a little easier for me to figure out where they should go. So there's my resource module open. Now, because I was advocating for you to add your files to files first, it's going to be best to add your files to this module from the plus button right here. And then in the little window, click on the drop down until you locate file. And then this is going to pull from all of your files. So I'm going to go ahead and pick. I admit I don't have some really good, I do my best. I was not a fine arts instructor at all. Um, but there, I can go ahead and add my file directly from that plus button here. You can actually click on that plus button and you can do several files. So if I wanted to add, for example, this file to this file, I want to add all four at once. You can hold down on the shift key and then select the first and the last file, and you can get all four with a single click. And then you can click on add item. Now, here's a little fact about students that I want to reiterate. The file names that make sense to you don't necessarily make sense to students. And file extensions like JPEG are not student friendly either. So once you add the file to your module, you can choose the three dots here, do edit, and then here you can modify the title. So fifth position. And then that makes the title of the file a lot easier for students to figure at a glance, oh, this is about fifth position. So there's a good starting point for rethinking your module flow, right? I can start out by creating folders of resources, one folder for each topic, project, assignment, what have you. Now, when you get more comfortable, and you will with Canvas, you might want to even go a little further and consider creating a module that not only contains resources, but also contains assignments, pages, maybe even quizzes if you feel that's appropriate. So what we're seeing here is a module for an introductory music class. And I have here pages, links going to resources. So if students clicked on it, in this case, it would lead them to that video. Here's a page on the treble clef. And you see here, you could make this page really interesting if you wanted to. So I have, images of notes on the treble staff. I even have here an embed where students can interact with the embed and learn more about the treble clef. And it's a nice way to kind of center a lesson, right? So what you would do is you would click on the plus button here for your module. And in the drop down, you can choose page. And you may have a page already made, but if you don't, you can click on create page, give that a title, and then you can edit that page as needed. And to edit a page, you have an edit button right here where you can enter your information. And this is also a great use case for showing you that you need to make your content accessible too. This is our accessibility checker, which lets me know in this case I've got some issues to fix. It walks you through everything that you need to do. This image is not needed to understand music, so I'll just apply that. And so I'll go through each of the options here, decide if the student needs to know this to pass the class. But everything that I have here is decorative, so I'm just, oh, that's a screenshot. So I'll go ahead and I'll add some alt text for this until you get this balloon image to tell you that your content is now as accessible as we can make it. So when you feel it appropriate, right? You could absolutely create a module of resources, including not only videos and readings and content, but also can include discussion boards, as well as assignments and even quizzes if you wish. And again, if you want to add those resources, click on the plus button, and then in the drop down, choose discussion if you want that, or choose quiz if you need that. And of course, assignments is at the very top. Now, as a shortcut to this, because I'm not pretending that you might be like a Canvas expert, and that's okay. I'm not. I'm working on it always. But you can take a resource that's already created, like this one. This is my discussion on mnemonic devices. And you can even duplicate these resources to copy the format without having to start over. So in the three dots for the item you want to duplicate, choose the duplicate function. And then you can even move it to a different module that you're building. So as I've shown you before, you can drag it to a different module if it's open. Or you have in the three dots here a move to function where you can tell Canvas where this copy of this discussion goes. And I'll just show you, you can place that anywhere inside your destination module. All right. So consider at some point creating a module that can support a unit, a project, a theme inside of your course that corresponds to and complements what you're doing in the in-person classroom. Now we'll go ahead and start to think about more of the technique in embedding that content, because you saw in my treble clef page right here, right? I was able to add images. You can also add videos and so on. So let me go back to my module and kind of showed you a couple of other examples. I'll do that here. Now you can embed content into basically anything in Canvas. I have here several assignments, two assignments to be exact, and I have 2 pages with embedded content. So I want to show you what it can look like, and then I'll show you how to embed this stuff. So I have here an assignment. This particular assignment has an embedded YouTube video in it, but you have the benefit of using Studio. Studio is our built-in add-in tool for video engagement, and I'm saying you could make this a studio video too. And if you haven't yet seen Studio, you are in for a treat. I'm going to go ahead and open mine up here. I do have a lot going on here, but you can create videos here. You have 2 options to make your own videos, like a demonstration of something, a performance, a lecture. You can capture yourself speaking directly in Studio. Check your hair first, right? You can turn off your camera. I think that could be powerful, especially for foreign language classes where the emphasis should be on, at least at certain points in the course, speaking correctly. So you can add an audio clip if you don't want to add a video clip. Uh, you have here an option to capture your screen. That might be helpful if you're just doing like a quick tutorial video on how to access a resource. So I'll go ahead and show you that. This is going to capture the entire screen here. Hello, here's my screen. Your video clip is available here, and then once you save it, There it is right there. You could go back to your assignment here, your item, whatever you're trying to embed. And in the plug icon, which is where you access all of your tools that work with Canvas, Access Studio, and then you can pull in that video that you just created. Now, if I embed this in this way, it looks almost, a little bit like YouTube in that you just see a way to play the video and that's all. But as an additional option to increase engagement among students in Canvas, I'll find the same video to show you. You can display media tabs, which allows for students to comment on the video. So if I was a student and I had access to this, I can play the video, right? Stop it here, and I can add a question or a comment back at you, and you even have the capacity to reply. And that reply function lives right here underneath the parent comment. So imagine you can have a page with a performance, and you can ask students in the page, hey, why don't you go ahead and, let's practice our critique. Go ahead and give a positive comment and a constructive comment, however you structure that. And you can have students replying both to you and each other. So it's a discussion, yes, but it feels more informal than a regular discussion board. Plus, you can also gain insights to know when students watch the video and did they watch the whole way through? Because let's be honest, do they skip around? Sometimes. So you could even tell, oh, Helen only watched 15% of the video. Let's have a conversation with Helen. What's she about? And you can see all that data by student. So that's a little bit of what you can do with Studio. Now, for those of us that are not natural born video producers, and to be honest, I'm not, you can always leverage YouTube and Vimeo with the add media function. So I am going to locate a video I found on Spanish. So I'm going to paste that link here. Let me clean this up a little bit because it was in a playlist. And it will be added to your studio library, and then you could put that into your page in the same method, using the same method that you saw me do to add videos to items. And you can still get the insights to see if students watched all the way through or not. All right, so that is the beginning of our embedding journey here. I was just wanting to show you how video looks inside of Studio. It's really great. So your video can be playing here, and then you can ask students to comment on the skills being shown or whatever else that the students need to answer. And you can take in that communication inside of Canvas as a written assignment. You can even attach a rubric and be able to see and measure student understanding of that content and use that rubric to grade and speed grader. I think that's helpful, especially for times when you feel like students need to watch the item over and over. Um, while in-person performances are powerful and unique and individual, it can be difficult to assess afterwards. At least I found it was, because in my own course, the students would have to do, debates and discussions and oral presentations, and I found that tricky to assess. But in Canvas, I could watch them and I could still enter the feedback inside of SpeedGrader. All right. So other things you can embed. Let me go back inside of modules to show you that. If you're fancy, and that's fine if you're fancy, you can add HTML content. This is a resource called Mentimeter, and I will share this in the chat because it's got a pretty good free account option. So you can create the resource in Mentimeter and then obtain an HTML code for it. Once you have the code, you can place it inside the RCE. So if you have the code, and I'll show you how to get one for a different resource in a minute, you would access the RCE, which is this word processing like space you see inside of this page, and you would enter the code inside of this cloud. So the resource should give you the code to paste in here. And then it will be visible and can be directly interacted with inside of your page, your assignment, your discussion prompt, um, even a quiz question if you wanted it to, or an announcement. Now, I like the word cloud option. It's a great way to elicit student response, and it's all recorded there. I don't have to remember. But I want to show you the more in-depth embedding flow with Google Maps. So I didn't know until I actually worked as an instructor, but did you know that you can embed a Google map in Canvas? You can. So this is for a Spanish class. There is an option here to open in Maps, but even inside of Canvas, you see I can kind of maneuver the screen right there. Right? I can move around. Right? Wouldn't this be great to kind of tie in, say, the culture for a language class like this? So let me show you how to get a Google Maps embed, and I will share this with you here. Pop this here in the chat. So I have here my Google Map. I'm going to pretend I am teaching musical theater, and I type in the address for the place that I want to have inside of the Google Map. You can choose the size of the window, and this is a way for you to play with it. You can have a small window or a big window. You can make the map responsive. But right here in this button is a generate code button. So you would click it and then just click on copy code. And then once it's copied, oops, let me go back to this page here. You can open up a module here and add a plain page to it. So I'll do that here in this page, or module rather. So to make a new page, I just click on the plus button and then choose create page. Give that a title. Now this is a plain page, right? So we've got to add our embed to it. So I click on edit and then we choose the three dots and then that cloud. And so I'm going to paste all of that code. And if you lose it, I mean, I do that too. Make sure to have that open in a separate tab so that you can come back and recopy it if you miss it. So then when I click on submit, there's my Google map. And then after it thinks about it, you have a pretty great Google map inside of Canvas. And that's just our example for today, but I'm positive that there are lots of other resources where you can obtain that HTML code and embed it into a page. And imagine if it's part of assignment directions or discussion directions. I think that would be really powerful to bring the real world into Canvas. And aren't we always trying to get students to understand the real world, right? All right. So that's how to get a map. One other way to get content into Canvas, and I'll clean this up here. Here's a tip. If you want to erase this, remove this, click on the item and then just hit backspace or delete, and it's gone. What if you just wanted to add a PDF? So let's say I'm a music teacher and I want to embed some sheet music so so that students can access it. So let's go ahead and locate this icon right here in the rich content editor. We click on the drop down here, and because we're pulling from files, right? Choose course documents, and then you're going to locate the item that you want to embed. Now, you can always search for it. If it doesn't immediately appear here, for me, it's very easy because of the B. Now, when you initially place that into Canvas, it's not going to look like your file right off the bat, and that's normal. Let me show you how this looks like if I just went ahead and gave this to students. So if I choose the View as Student button here, the link is all I'm able to see, and it's fine, but is it engaging? Probably not. It lets me have access to the file, but that's about it. So here's another option to make your file be more visible in Canvas. I'll go back into the edit area here. Click somewhere in the link once you have it, and then choose Link Options. The default in Canvas is something called Overlay View. And here's how Overlay View looks, which you can test just as yourself. You don't have to be a US student to see this. So if I just click on it after Canvas thinks about it, the sheet music will appear right here. And I have access, it's thinking about it. And I have access to it. That's great, but it does hide Canvas and that can be disconcerting. So if you prefer, you can turn on a different view, which is why I'm suggesting let's click on that link there, do link options, and we're going to choose preview inline. We're leading towards something. So when I click on this as a learner, okay, I get that to open up. It's all right here. It looks great. There's still a way for me to download it, and if I want to close it, I choose minimize file preview. So I think that's better as far as file visibility. Now, if you know that you want this to be the only item in your page, because you're not going to add any other information to the page, here is the best option. Click on the link and then click off this checkbox here, expand preview by default. So when you click on done and then go to check it, the file just opens. And that I think is the best experience for students because they need not do anything special to make the PDF viewable. But keep in mind that if you want this view, you'll have to make sure that you don't have excess information on the page because this window does take up a large amount of space. All right. So that's what I wanted to talk about in regards to getting your content into Canvas. Start with a module where you put resources in it, like my art gallery module, right? Build up to creating a module with content like pages, links, assignments, quizzes. and then embed content on pages. And this is a good time to see if there are any questions or if you have anything that you need me to go over again or considerations maybe for your particular course. We'd be happy to talk about it.
And Helen, just to reinforce, anything that
Sure.
you add to a page like that PDF, that will not necessarily be checked by the accessibility checker. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mhm.
So to remediate a PDF, you have to go elsewhere to
Mhm.
fix if it needs to be accessible,
Correct.
those kinds of things. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm. All right, Dr. Bell, not a basic question. How do you connect a rubric to an assignment? We are getting to the assignments piece. So I will be happy to show you this now. Let me go into this module here. So I'll go back into this video assignment, which is set up so that students have to type into a little box to submit their work. So you can create a rubric directly from that plus button. You can enter in your information. I would click off this box here now, use this rubric for assignment grading to ensure that the points from the rubric will be the student's total grade. And then here you draft a new criterion. And I'll just do one criterion in the interests of time. Here's where you add that description of the criterion and then descriptions for each of the levels. You can remove levels or add levels through the plus button here. And then you would click on Save Criterion. And then once you have your rubric created, you can even enable something called self-assessment, which I'll show you a little bit later. Um, but that's how you can create a rubric from scratch from here. If you happen to already have a rubric, I don't know, you might, you can use the magnifying glass here. So in this case, I can actually replace a rubric. Mm, I'll just choose this one because it's convenient. So I just switched out my rubric that I saw that I showed you here. But yeah, you can locate a rubric you already have and then connect it to your assignment here. And in short, yeah, you can, Dr. Naylor, if you have a course that's built and ready to go, you could go into the course where you want to receive the content, and then you have an import course content function. In your case, you would choose copy a Canvas course because the content is elsewhere. Search for it, choose what content you want to pull over, and then click Add to Import Queue. So the short answer, Dr. Naylor, is yes, you can do that. The key is to start in the course where you want to receive the content, and then you would go into the import function. All right. We can keep on talking about assessments because I know that this is something that's of great interest to folks. Let's go into opportunities for collaboration and feedback. And oddly enough, I'm going to start in an area in Canvas, which is not known for that necessarily, and that's announcements. So typically, announcements are for the instructor to send one message out to all students all at once, like have to cancel class, had to change the due date on an assignment, that kind of thing. Send a quick message out to all folks all at once. But there is an additional function in announcements that flies under the radar. It's called external feeds. The idea is that you can bring the real world into your course by locating an external feed for your content area that brings in news articles with the idea that we're going to frame an assignment or an in-person discussion around the latest post. So I have here external feeds that are pulling in like news from, this is from playbill.com for a musical theater class. Now, I'm not assuming you're all musical theater teachers. Believe me when I say there is an RSS feed for anything, anything. I have found RSS feeds for auto repair, for home improvement, tons of things. So my suggestion here is this. Could you attach an external feed that delivers news articles? And then maybe you say, all right, students, now all the students are coming into you. We're all going to start class. I want you to go into Canvas, find one of the recent posts. Why don't you go ahead and turn to your shoulder partner or form a group of three, have an in-person discussion about that resource. What did you think about it? What's your preference? However, whatever questions you want to ask about it. My point is that you could leverage this, talk about something in the real world, not that you don't already do, but another chance to talk about something in the real world. But it starts in Canvas, right? So here is the workflow. You're going to Google subject matter here, RSS feed. So when I was preparing for this particular training, I searched for dance and I found 100 dance RSS feeds. You are going to have to check out the feed first. Do your due diligence, right? So you can click on the link to see what kinds of articles come into the feed. You want to pick a feed that's active. And so if you are satisfied with that feed, you need to get this link right here. So I'm just going to right click and copy the link address. And then once you have the RSS feed selected, go back into your course and go to announcements. Click on external feeds and then add external feed. And this is where you paste it in. Now you have choices. When you get that news article into Canvas, you can have the full article show, and sometimes they're really long, or just the first couple of sentences, or this only goes to a link to that specific article. And if you're studying a particular topic like French grammar, right, or dramatic monologues, you can even click on this checkbox. I only want to know about jazz. And then click on add feed. And as long as it's a busy feed, you will get, let me tell you, I get a lot of notifications from Playbill. If you want to do some experimenting, I will share with you the Playbill RSS feed because I know it's active. So here in this list, say if you wanted the RSS feed for news, right here, you just want to grab the link for it. So I just do right click, copy link address, and then that's what you can paste in your RSS feed. So I'll share this here. If you want to experiment inside of a sandbox, feel free to use that. And then if you find that that's not the one for you, you can always remove feeds because you have an X button here, so you just cancel it. Fair warning though, the Playbill RSS feed is very, very active, so keep that in mind. So I think that's a good way to segue into using Canvas too. Bring in these news articles, maybe have an in-person discussion about it. And then when you feel more comfortable, you can even create a Canvas discussion board and have students reply to the boards before you have that in-person class. Which leads me to discussions. So let me show you some examples of what this could be like. And feel free to, in your mind, put your content area over this. Here's an example of a simple discussion board. Brainstorm reasons that people listen to music. So you can have a prompt. Add in some guidelines for students. I know most people have students type, but you don't have to live that way because students can add links, images, documents, and they also have access to Studio. Now, this is a really powerful way for students to interact asynchronously. I've seen fine arts teachers do things like you have to post a 1 minute response to the play that we just saw, but you have to do it in Studio. The video will be playable here by all, and then you can require that students reply to each other, again using a Studio video. And to show you this, and this is the same view that students have, they can create their Studio video from here. So they could just choose Studio Capture to have their face showing in it. I'll show you. Hi there, here's my 1 minute critique of Macbeth. So I clicked save right there. There's my video. And then I can choose it. And then when I hit reply here, that video, oh, I'll choose a better thumbnail next time. That video will be playable by all. So imagine in your mind, you can have video replies to other students' videos. And I'd also recommend too, when you're trying this out, why don't you create a video as yourself to show that, hey, I'm trying this out too. I'm also working out how best this works. So feel free to create your own reply so that people have that frame of reference, like this is how my video should be, and then they can create like videos. Now, when it comes to organizing discussions in an order, this is a great question. Let's say you've got several discussions listed here, like I do here. You have two options to move discussions around. Focus on the Bucks of Oranmore. If you hold down on this 8 dots, it's like a handle, and you can move it to your preferred order, like that. Or for folks that don't want to drag and drop, in the menu here is a move to function. And so we're just going to keep it in the same module, that's this module, but I can place it to be after Macbeth. So I have to find Macbeth here in the list. There's Macbeth. And then it moves that discussion for me. So two options, drag and drop or move to.
And Helen, that's the order that's in the module area. If they
Mhm.
choose to have the discussions link and the course navigation visible to students, on the discussion index page, the order that is listed there is by most recent. Is that
Correct.
correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So
So
it's going to change.
yeah. So the jazz performance technique discussion is automatically first because it right now has the most activity. Mhm.
So this would be why we'd maybe prefer to put the order and have students go in through modules rather than through the discussion index page, is because
Correct.
of that ordering.
Yeah, we want to make sure students can find today's discussion quickly, right? The discussions index, if that's made visible to students, is not conducive to that. Students don't intuitively understand how to find the group Macbeth discussion. So what they'll do is they'll scroll up and down, and it may be hidden at the bottom of the list and they may get frustrated. So consider the discussions index like a storage area. But when it comes to making discussions visible, put them in a module because in a module, you have the authority, if I can say so, you have the authority to put discussions in an easy order, right? So if I'm stuck on Macbeth today, but if I'm teaching Macbeth, from the dramatic perspective, I can put all discussions related to Macbeth in a module. So then we move on to As You Like It. Then I place that in the As You Like It module.
And that module access also helps that when the student is actually on that discussion board, if they click the previous or next, it will actually take them to the next item in the module rather than trying to find it off of a discussion index page. Is that correct?
Correct. So here's that course writing prompt. There's a previous and next button here. So if I just click on next, as long as it's published, and if it is, there's a check mark, then I get to the next item in the module pretty quickly. All right, so I always feel like with discussions, oh, it's all about how you craft the prompt. So having discussions where students don't have to use a lot of their brain is not necessarily an engaging discussion. So consider having students write or respond in a way that uses all their brain, like persuade others, like critique this performance. So in this case, this is jazz performance. Um, 2-minute video of you performing your jazz piece, and then offer some feedback on videos from at least 2 other students. And as a additional powerful feature in Canvas you can leverage, when you set up a discussion, you can make it graded, which allows you to use a rubric to grade the discussion posts in SpeedGrader. And if you're the type like me that likes this format, submit your first post on Friday, submit your replies to 3 other students on the following Thursday. You can make use of graded checkpoints. So you can set up, say, hey, your first reply is 5 points, 3 additional replies, 10 points total for the replies, so points possible is 15. And you can set a due date for different aspects of the discussion. So first reply is due on the 10th. Required replies are due on the 16th. And they'll be told, by the way, because they will see this in the module, that they have different due dates. Let me show you that actually. Also, I'll do view as student. Here's that module in question. Yeah, right here. So students would see this discussion has a reply that's due on the 10th, 3 replies that are due on the 16th. So they'll be told, and they would go into the discussion board here to do it. And then when it comes to grading, we'll go in here again. To add a rubric, select on the 3 dots for it, choose Show Rubric. So here's where you add the rubric. We saw this already, right? And then once you have SpeedGrader, and I admit I don't have any replies, don't judge me, but you'll see all of the replies for the student are listed here. And then right here, right, you can use the rubric to help guide how you want to grade, and then you can enter in the points here and points earned here to give a grade, total grade for the student on the discussion board. And by the way, like I'm not knocking in-person discussions. You should still have in-person discussions. But this is a great way for you to give credit to those asynchronous reflection pieces, critique pieces, peer feedback in such a way that everything is captured here. Because imagine you'll see all the discussion board posts here and then give a grade here for that student's work. And as an aside here, I have a little image here. You can add video, you can add embeds, you can add documents to add interest to your prompt. I think for a lot of topics too, maybe also inside of performance-based classes, you might want to have discussion boards that are only accessible to 2 students, not 50 students. That would be in setting up group discussions. So here's an example of one. Macbeth again. We're going to rehearse Macbeth in your group. Deliver your lines separately, but in such a way that, only 2 students can look at each other's work, not I'm seeing like 49 other students' work, which is a lot. So when you go to set up the discussion, right, your prompt goes here. Make sure it's graded so you can add a rubric, but you want to check off here as well. This is a group discussion. And then in the group set, you can set up your groups in the new group category. So this is where you decide Lauren and Karen are together. Soraya and David and Eliana and Helen are together. This is where you decide who works with whom and who sees and critiques each other on their own board. And then you'll be able to access all discussion boards. There will be a button here to that effect. It'll say group discussions, and you can hop back and forth between discussion boards as needed. All right. Well, it's a good time as any to go ahead and pause. Do you have any questions, any insights? Are you excited? Are you curious about how you can make this work for you? All right. That's all right. We're taking it in. All right. Let's take a look at closer look at assignments, I think. And we're also going to talk about rubrics in a little more detail. Let's take a look at options for assignments, first of all. You saw my video assignment previously. Here's another one. Maybe we are learning Korean all together. Here's an example of how you can embed a video. Now, it can be Studio. Okay, remember you can access Studio in the plug icon to Studio Media, and then you can record yourself and put that into your assignment prompt. But did you know you can have Canvas accept videos? So what I would do is I would actually let students choose in this case. You can turn on the media recordings option here, which lets students use the media recorder built in, no additional software. Or they can upload a file since some students have access to their own video programs. In which case, I would recommend you restrict which files. There are so many strange file types out there. You want to be able to open the video file. So you might want to restrict file types to just MP4s. So choose the online type, check off media and file uploads. And they can access Studio. I'll show you how to do that. After you set a due date, so now you want to see how this is like in the student view. So I'll click on View as Student. This is what your students would see, right? Points possible. The video will be playable here. The choices you made will be available here. So here's the media recorder. You saw that already, but that's how they can record their media here. They can also upload their file here. But right here in the three dots is Studio. And they can leverage their Studio account from here because they can create their video from here. Imagine, right? Upload a 2-minute part of your practice session on the trumpet. Or go ahead and give me a 2-minute video of your best Korean accent. Or a 2-minute video of your critique on the dramatic monologue that you heard in class today. And then the student would click on Submit Assignment. And then now you have something for students to watch. So just to show you the flow here, we'll pretend that I have a video. I'll go ahead and click on the spaceship here if I am submitting that file. And then I click on Submit Assignment. It's a pretty big file. But that confetti lets students know that it is on time. They don't have to ask. And then you would see all student submissions here in SpeedGrader. And then your question, if you want students to add a YouTube video link, that's a good question. They would not use Add Media. If you prefer for them to use a YouTube link, then you need to enable website URL. So if I'm wanting to submit to your class, right, here's View as Student. So when I go to attempt number 2, there's the website URL, and then they can put the YouTube video link right here. And then they hit Submit Assignment. All right, and then great question from Dr. Nagara here. Oh, I love it. Can I tell my students to just go to the assignments tab? I used to do that as an instructor. I used to let students see everything because my rationale was they can find it. They're not 5. They can look through it and find what they need to do. Eventually, students told me to please stop. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to let assignments be visible just so you can see what students were seeing. Okay. Because there was a reason why I stopped doing that and why I tell folks this is actually not the best practice. So now that assignments is visible, just so you get that experience, if I click on View as Student, the student's view of the assignments area is not your view. That's the problem. If I was a student in this class, I would panic because I would see undated assignments. When's the due date? Do I have to do all of this? Do I have to do this now? There's also another folder called, and it's not open here, but it does exist, overdue assignments. So there's an overdue assignments folder, an upcoming assignments folder, an undated assignments folder. I would not understand just right off the bat what I need to do today. Now, are some students going to figure that out? I'm sure they will, but not all. And I think the real problem, honestly, is that this is out of context. I don't understand the context for this assignment, but in modules, I get the context. I know within the Korean grammar module that that's where the Korean assignment should be. So when students told me, like, we don't understand the assignments area, please, can you hide that? I did. So to hide that, I just kind of drag that to the bottom table here. And then at that point, I moved to just doing modules for everything so that there was only one place for students to find things. And I'm serious when I say 90% of all my Canvas questions disappeared as soon as I told students go to modules for everything. And that's why I advocate for everybody to use modules all the time. Okay. Great question from Tara. Difference between the media option and the Canvas Studio option. To the instructor, not much difference. To the institution, yes, there's a difference. The media option, let me see if I can pull this up here. Let's do new attempt. I think when it comes to video, I would preferentially have students use Studio. The reason is because the Studio course quota, right? The number of gigabytes that Studio has is not based on your course. It's based at MTSU's level, and it's a huge pool. Using Canvas Studio Media does not count against you or the course or the student. And it also offers some interesting ways in which students can work with their video. So for example, if students are taught, they can add their own annotations to videos that they create. With the media recorder, like which is easy to use, don't get me wrong. As of right this moment, does not have captioning. Captioning is coming though. It's coming in actually later this month. But at the moment, it does not have native built-in captioning capabilities. Let me backtrack. The storage for this media recording does not count against the course, but it does count against the student as far as the student account is concerned. So the difference isn't really functionality, Tara. It's where that amount of gigabytes counts. So I think if I had a choice, if I was going to start over, have students use their studio media to record video. There will not be a problem as far as students running out of space. Yeah, perfect. All right. So we can have students submit videos, powerful in and of itself. You can even have, here's an example for Little Women. If you're just trying to ease your way into it, and that's okay. Like you're trying to figure out, okay, all this sounds good, Helen, but can you offer me like a easier starting point? Here's an easier starting point. Drama class. Um, I'm having students watch the video, take notes on the video. This is the monologue. Each student will present in person to the class. So there is an in-person component, but you're choosing to grade in Canvas. That's called a no submission assignment. So the way this works as far as setup, you set up directions like you always do. But under submission type, you choose no submission. So this tells students, you're not recording in studio. You're not submitting a file. You're going to be standing on the stage physically in front of the other 20 physically present students to declaim your monologue. Still set a due date, that's still important. So while Helen, your student, is doing her Little Women monologue on stage, you can have your tablet or you can have your computer up because you can still do speed grader. Pretend Helen is in front of you here. You'll see a no submission notice, but you can still use a rubric to grade. And you can add comments to give Helen feedback on her content delivery, her audience, seamless transitions, or the quality of her voice technique. So you can still make use of this rubric to deliver that grade feedback. And not only can you get points to record in the Canvas gradebook, and it auto grades it. You can add additional comments, so general comments, emojis. You can even do video comments. Hi there, Helen. I wanted to give you some feedback on your Little Women monologue that you did in class. So you can record videos of your feedback and they'll be playable to students. And by the way, if you're shy, it's okay to be shy. You can turn off your camera and you can do audio feedback. And written feedback is valuable to be sure, but students always told me your video feedback made a huge difference. I think because it was clear you took the time to record that feedback video. You can even make use of a comment library here. So if you do need to go written, so there's my canned comment, I can click on that comment and it auto pastes here. And then I can add additional comments and click submit comment. So that's a quick way to add written comments if you're in a time crunch. So even with an in-person submission of an assignment, you can absolutely still use Canvas to grade. And I love this because not only is the feedback captured somewhere for students to come back to later, it's also captured here for me to come back and remember what I put down and what I said to a student because I did not always remember that. So I think that's a good way to get your toes wet, right? If you're not sure, you don't have to have every single thing in Canvas. You can still have students submit work, but you can grade in Canvas. And then one other thing I did want to show you here as far as rubrics are concerned, which I think is really powerful. Not like this isn't already powerful. Uh, Let me show you the self-assess function. So this is for an ASL class. Record this conversation using ASL and submit a video, right? So I have here a rubric that's been attached, and you click off this checkbox, Enable Self-Assessment. I've already had my test students submit, so we're going to take a look at the student side. So this is our student, right? Once the student has submitted, right, and their video is here, they'll have an option to self-assess. Now, this is not them giving themselves the grade that they get for the assignment. This is the student using the rubric to indicate to the professor, this is what I thought. This is where I think I would go in the rubric criteria. So when I click on self-assess, I can go ahead and give myself my own ratings. And you can even require, you have to explain why you're giving yourself this. And then they'll click on submit assessment. Okay, so it's now submitted. Now, as the instructor, I go into SpeedGrader now. So the video is playable here. And then if I want, I can click this little toggle view student self-assessment. So this is what the student put. They're outlined in these green borders. So I can take that into account, right? And I can even see what the test student put down as their rationale, but then I can put down my own my own assessment and put down my own comments. So I think this is a powerful way for students to interact with the rubric and also have students be required to understand the rubric. Because haven't we all come into the situation where the students came back, you gave them a assessment with a rubric on a piece of paper, and they're like, I don't understand this. Well, here's a great way for you to have students interact with the rubric differently, right? So I can click on and hit my own assessment. And don't worry, your assessment is what rules as far as the gradebook is concerned. But this offers a great way for students to process the rubric and maybe even a great conversation starter for a conference. So that's the assessment piece. All right. Now let me go on back into our course here. My impression is that quizzes are not necessarily something that's used frequently in a performance course, and that's okay. If that still doesn't suit you, then don't. But feel free to investigate how you might use quizzes. So I'll just do a short explanation of how you can get a quiz going. So you can start a new quiz from the plus button there. Your new item always appears at the bottom, marked with the rocket ship. You would set up your points here, a due date, and then in the build area is where you add the quiz questions. And if you need to, you have a plus button. Select on the plus button and choose the type of question you wish to add. And you can add, let's say, an essay question. So you can have students writing in the middle of the quiz, but you also have the rich content editor too. So you could create, say, a media recording or a studio recording because that's accessible here. And then once the student has the essay question in front of them, they can type in their answers directly into the rich content editor. You can even have a word count, right? A word limit. You can have spell check, designate the total number of points, add feedback that students can view later when they see the submission page. And I'll point out like just one other option here. You can create what's called a stimulus. And I think for most of us, a stimulus is probably best as a document or a video. So basically, I can say, watch the video and answer the questions, which would be my instructions. Add in the content here, which is the document. So I'll go ahead and do Furley's again. So my point being, the item can be on the left, and then the question that's relevant to the item can be on the right. So I could create, say, a multiple choice question relevant to Furley's. And if I have 5 questions related to Furley's, you can have all 5 questions showing or just have each question show one at a time. But every time Furley's will be available on the left for the students to access. So I did just want to point out you can have video, audio, documents, images. For our art folks, you can have images be the great springboard for a quiz question or a few. Now, as far as tracking progress, I think the first place that we'd all go into is the gradebook, which is a little empty right now because I just have the one student. But you'll be able to view all submissions of that student. Our test student's been a little bit lazy. But you'll be able to see the submission here. There will be a symbol of a paper here. And you can access SpeedGrader from the 3 dots of that assignment. If this was, say, a in-person explanation presentation, you can even type in the points here, right? So you can grade even without SpeedGrader. And in the window over here, you can add comments for your student's performance here. So it's similar to SpeedGrader, it's just a little more condensed. You can access some great analytics too for your course here. I have to go back to the home page for it. In an area called the course analytics space. So you can see, for example, if Helen accessed all resources within a particular week in your course. But for those of us that really value students curating their own work, I'm going to end on an amazing tool. This tool is free. It is available. And I'm excited to talk about this. This is the Portfolios tool inside of Canvas. I want to show you this from the student side. Here's a student. Because I want you to understand students have a lot of autonomy here to create a portfolio. Uh, so our student here could go into their account and they would click on the portfolio link. Now, I am here as a faculty member, but students also can access the portfolio link. And when you do, you get a little authorize button. Do you want to authorize? Yes, you want to authorize. Students have access to a showcase portfolio option and then an assigned option. Because I'm a teacher, I also have a third tab, which is an evaluation option. But I show you this because even faculty can create showcase portfolios. Think of this as an opportunity for the learner to show off, showcase portfolio to show off. So our student or a student can click on create portfolio. They can fill in a portfolio name. Oops, let's spell. They can add an image and a description. And then they can add evidence to their portfolio. Here's a built out one that I think would give you a better visual. So this is our student Natalie, who has created a pretty decent performing arts portfolio. And she's published it too, which makes is that so that she can even share that. You can have her copy the link to her portfolio, and then you could assess it in an assignment using website URL because that's a URL. They can even share that on LinkedIn too. So here's that built out portfolio, right? With the description and then evidence listed in sections. So this student has a professional career section and a professional musical growth section. She even has tags at the bottom here. And she has some volunteer experience at the community orchestra. So she enters in evidence details and tags, her reflection, and she can even add files and links. And just so that you're able to see, I'll click on edit. They can add evidence through the plus button here. So they can choose project, extracurricular, or professional experience. And then at the very bottom here, they can add files. They can even add links too. So if they have, say, a video of a performance hiding in their OneDrive, they can add a link to it here. They can also set up sections for, say, projects that they've completed, and then files for each. And then they can even attach links to current Canvas assignments so that folks can see kind of from the outside, these are the assignments that the student completed that led to their understanding and their achievements in this case, performing arts. So that's the showcase portfolio. I anticipate students will make the most use of this, but honestly, yourselves as faculty, you can create your own showcase portfolio too. If you ever want to create a portfolio for evaluation, you can do that. Let's go here, back here. The evaluation portfolio is what it sounds like. You are taking this for a grade and you are giving feedback on it. So you would create it here, and then students would submit to the evaluation portfolio for your assessment. So this was not meant to be a portfolios training, just a little tour, but I'm so excited to show you this, I think in particular, because I think this suits you all to a T. So maybe in the future we can have a focused training on portfolios. And folks, that's where we're going to end. I thought we would end on an especially amazing resource. So, are there any questions for you? Anything you want to bring up? Anything you're excited about? Thank you, Dr. Noguera. Thank you for everything you do. I can see students in the mock trial using the portfolio, honestly, right? Like submit your notes, submit a link to a video of yourself practicing.
They
Why
get
not?
it hot and heavy. They got it hot and heavy live, but maybe someday we'll go that far. They actually do see themselves on video. So yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Uh, All right, I'm glad to hear that it was helpful. No need to implement everything all at once. You just start with an assignment and you can go from there. All right, friends. So if you would like to claim this badge for performance-based teaching, you can. Here is a link in the chat where you can claim the badge. And you can put that in your signature. You can put that in your showcase portfolio, actually, if you wanted to. And right here is our training survey. So if you enjoyed this session and you thought it would be helpful, feel free to fill that out. Should be pretty short. And you're looking for the only Helen in the list. On behalf of instructor, thanks for everything you do. So excited for you. And I'll see you at a future training, okay?
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank
Again,
you.
check out the CTM website ctm.mtsu.edu/Canvas for all of our localized resources. And if you have any other questions or anything, please do feel free to reach out canvas@mtsu.edu. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a great day.